You're watching TVC Breakfast. Today is World Habitat Day, and this year the theme, Accelerating Urban Action for a Carbon-Free World, recognizes that cities are responsible for some 70% of global carbon dioxide emissions, with transport, buildings, energy and waste management accounting for the bulk of urban greenhouse gas emissions. Now, the commemoration will explore how national, regional and local governments, as well as relevant stakeholders, can work together to create sustainable, carbon-neutral, inclusive cities and towns. That is what we'll be talking about in the next couple of minutes on a day like this. And I have with me, joining me on Zoom, environmentalist and MD CEO, Mark Press, West Africa, Ido Salau. Ido, it's good to have you join me, and happy World Habitat Day.
Yeah, same to you here today. I'm actually preparing to deliver a lecture on the World Habitat Day being celebrated by Lagos State Government in any moment from now. That's why I couldn't make it to your studio.
That's amazing.
At the same time, we are on, and I think we do justice to it.
That's good. All right, that's fine. We're starting off from here before you get into your lectures then. Now, talk to us basically, how important is it that a day like this is set aside to commemorate habitat, which forms part of human living?
Well, it's a yearly event being organized by the United Nations just to checkmate government, all stakeholders, to carry them along on policy. And every year they choose topics. Luckily, the topic of this year is urban action, accelerating urban action for a low carbon-free city. What do we mean by a low carbon-free city? That's what we should try to look at. And what are the actions that we need to put in place? A low carbon-free city simply means a zero carbon dioxide emission in a city. That is, you regulate that, and this is part of agenda of climate change. Looking at the narrative that is on ground now in terms of climate change agitation by policymakers, United Nations, that urban migration is on the increase. And since urban migration is on the increase, then activities of human beings will continue to increase. And this is what is bringing about the accumulation and production of this carbon element in our city. So you rightly mentioned that sources of carbon emission include from homes, from transportation, and from waste management and others. But the most worrisome in Lagos is that we have more coming from transportation system. That is air pollution coming from transportation system. Believe me, right now, if we have almost close to 7 million vehicles in Lagos State, registered in Lagos State, how many ply the road every day? Car emission that is coming up every day is something that should be a source of worry to policymakers and other stakeholders. So how do we reduce that? That is the theme of today's government action to reduce carbon emission. That is the theme of the World Habitat Day that we are celebrating today.
To the issues of how to reduce carbon emission. Now, make us understand, what are the elements that need to be present to create a viable habitat? Because we all look forward to having, a conducive environment to live in and have a wonderful life. But what are those elements that have to be present to make us know or feel that we have a viable habitat?
Oh, that's a good question. If we want, the Lagos State has started, at least policy of government has started changing some some infrastructure into a green environment. And let's take a look at what is happening in the Eco-Atlantic city. That is exactly what we're looking at. The action is there, the commitment is there, the government policy that bring about the private sector funding that kind of infrastructure development. It is there. So you can see what Eco-Atlantic city is being transformed into compared to what it used to be. That's one. There is a place in Bariga which one of the past administration has successfully converted into jetty. You could see how that waterfront used to be. It used to be like where very close to Okobaba, where they used to burn where they have the Okobaba, what's it called, sawmill, where every time you see pollution. So this is the kind of transformation we are looking at, converting the brown environment to green environment. But it's beyond reduction of emission. It's beyond reduction of carbon technology. We need to put action in place, and we need to put the right policy, and we need to join the international world in terms of technology transfer to be able to achieve this. And we had something similar during the pandemic. And I'm even, maybe I will advocate to the National Assembly very soon, so that maybe we will have one day in a year called Work-Free Day, whereby human activities in terms of transportation, industry will not open, people will not move around, just to celebrate maybe the carbon, to reduce carbon emission. You can see that we use a sign of relief during the pandemic when activities of human beings was restricted. And that is exactly what we're looking at. But can we have such activities, such environment being introduced? No, it's not possible. Women have to go out, we have to work, but we must practice it in a very moderate way, and that's the only way we can do it.
All right. Urban areas generally have this pull factor where people who are in the rural areas are looking for greener pastures, and they feel that that greener pasture is in the urban areas, and thereby when they make their move, it chokes all the facilities in the urban areas. Now, but urban areas seem to be a good thing, but how does urbanization threaten the habitat that we all yearn for?
Okay, good. I always give specific example of Lagos. When Lagos was given the status of mega city, transportation was being considered. Human population being considered. Water and sanitation, environment, all these are being considered. And these are basic human needs that women need a proper habitation. And from the look of things, the United Nations is saying that by 2030, 70% of population will migrate to the urban area, meaning that the infrastructure that we have will now be overstressed. So what do we need to do? We need to have a department, our Department of Research and Development, and we need to have innovation being brought into place by converting gray infrastructure into green energy reduction program and project. Let me give you an example. Olusoso dump site, because we heard that waste management contributed to some percentage of carbon emission. Olusoso dump site is already in the heart of Lagos. It's occupying about 41.7 hectares of land. Over 30 million tons of waste has been dumped or landfill in that place since 1992. From 1 million tons of waste, you will generate nothing less than 350,000 tons tons per day of greenhouse gas. These are kind of emissions you expect. But what can we turn that place into? It could be converted to a green energy hub. So it takes action, vision, and the right policy of the government to know that they don't need to use money to buy generator sets and be using diesel, fossil fuel, to be powering Lagos Street any longer. This could be an avenue for them to generate the green energy we are looking at. You can use that Olusoso dump site as energy or hybrid, both solar and landfill gas. And that will reduce the carbon emission that we're talking about. And I give you an example again. In our homes, 30% of greenhouse emission comes from cooking, using the firewood. People still use firewood. People still use gas. People still use what's it called? Coal. So and we need to reduce that. Then the vehicle emission too. Maybe we should try and let the agency that is responsible for pollution control to try to give maybe Lagos vehicle, registered vehicle in Lagos, a kind of emission test, so that we know those that cannot pass the emission test, then you can't ply the road. All these are strategies that we need to put in place. But it takes a lot of political will. If anybody wants to do such a thing, it takes a lot of them. Maybe, again, the Lagos state government has tried maybe to introduce the red line, the blue line. Maybe people will now start. You can see what is happening now on Lagos Ibadan Express Road. There is a reduction in the vehicular activity because people now migrate using the other source of transportation, which is the rail line. So maybe by the time the blue line and the red line is ready, which is what as action of Lagos State is pointing towards now, that they want to achieve movement of people using the public transport system. And then there was a particular government that was thinking of using a cable car. And the transportation, look at again the time we have the invasion of trailers in Lagos. Why the rail line is not working like that? Thank God the rail line is about moving the container from the axis of Apapa down to the hinterland of Nigeria. So these are actions that we need to put in place. But governments also need to think of tomorrow. Why Apapa was developing during Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu's government, they didn't foresee that in the nearest future, they should not have allowed, during that period, they should not have allowed tank farm to be clustered in that same area of Apapa. And they forget to even improve the infrastructure of Apapa. And that is one of the major areas now. I beg you, after Ikorodu, because Ikorodu is likely to be the most populated, the most polluted area now in Lagos. After Ikorodu, I can bet you it's Apapa that will be next. Because of industrial activities, the iron and smelting, the foundry people in the company in Ikorodu are already contributing a lot of air emission because they are not following the industry practice. So these are areas government has to take the bull by the horn if they really want to tackle the issue of a carbon-free world as being done in other cities. So that is just my own advice.
All right. Thank you for letting us know that. Now, part of the elements that you mentioned earlier that has to be present to have a viable habitat, you talked about the issue of shelter, water, food, and one important one is space. Now, space, let me liken that to the issue of a housing pattern for a place like Lagos that you have used as your instance. For instance, if you remember, Festac Town, a place like Festac Town was beautifully built. You know, the arrangement, the housing patterns and all of that built for Festac 77 celebrations at the time. But after a period of time, the plan has been altered in such a way that some roads have been blocked, you know, some areas are no longer accessible. If you also liken the Gwarimpa Estate or housing estate, which is seen as the largest single housing estate in West Africa, in Abuja, the plan to a great extent also is being altered here and there. Now, what would it take to keep those kind of housing patterns for a period of time, knowing that there is a reason why it is patterned like that?
See, it takes vision to translate vision, action, and proper governance, then political will and the right funding. See, when Asiwaju came into government in 1999, he knows that he needs to increase his maybe first revenue generation for the state. The first thing he embarked on was to start new urban development in Lekki Aja. Today, we know how Lekki Aja used to be in those days. And that is the kind of pragmatic approach we're talking about. A government must have a vision. You don't just start blanketly and start improving this infrastructure. You must first have a vision. What is the goal? So in achieving this, somebody maybe all the water, I want to take all the waterfront on the Lagoon coastline between Okobaba up to Ebute Meta down to Unilag. I want to start developing what can I develop this thing into so that I'll first relocate to Okobaba sawmill. let's assume I can now turn that place into windmill, whereby windmill will surface in those areas and be generating electricity. Because if it's close to where lagoon is, they will have a kind of wind, enough wind to power to propel the mill. This is a vision. So we put that vision on. At the same time, you need proper political will to be able to relocate those who are there now, who are constituting nuisance. Yeah, we know that they are contributing economic activities to the state. But at the same time, we can move them better to hinterland. That's one of the areas. Another one I want to tell you is in terms of urban population migration into estates. Maybe an estate that's supposed to maybe accommodate more than maybe 1,000 people, because of the communal system that we used to live. And everybody must know somebody in Lagos before you come in. If you don't know somebody, you have to go and sleep under the bridge. Somebody else, government must start providing a better accommodation, and at the same time looking at way to make economic activity to move so that people can afford a better accommodation for themselves. So the more people we have, the more avenue for us to pollute the environment. So all this grey infrastructure must be transformed. Look at the transportation sector that takes the largest source of maybe pollution in Lagos. Now, government is being proactive now because of the introduction of mass movement. You can see the contribution of what's it called? The BRT. For that, Ikorodu has this. BRT is already reducing but how can the next thing is that can we change these buses to electric moving car or solar moving vehicle? These are the way we need to start thinking. At least we have experiment fossil fuel for since 2007 or 2006 when BRT was introduced. Till now, can we start thinking of in the next 10 years we will change all the buses to solar driven or electric powered vehicle? Again, the red line and the blue line, when they come into place, maybe we might not be using locomotive system of maybe it's electric driven. So these are things that we need, the action government needs to put to place in both transportation and housing sector. Then the issue of making gas available for people to cook instead of firewood, instead of what's it called, charcoal. All these are what we're looking at to make sure that when government is putting action in place, you put alternative there for people to be able to follow. So that's my own advice for government if they want to really translate vision into action, because of what we call we want to have is a standard living in the society. So
right.
Cooking with wood, which is 8%, charcoal, which is 3%, then kerosene take 30% from home. So imagine now you have more people in an estate, everybody using kerosene. So these are sources of methane that is coming in, carbon dioxide. And the one of landfill, I'm so particular about the one of landfill. A landfill gas consists of methane 50%, carbon dioxide almost 40-something%, and other particulate. So imagine that methane gas itself could be used as source of energy. And this is the value chain that we are talking about in waste management.
All right. We have to leave it here now. Thank you so much for all that insight, especially when it comes to the issue of the strategies on how to reduce carbon emission, because these are things disturbing human habitat one way or the other. Thank you so much, Ido Salau, the Managing Director, CEO, Mac Press, West Africa Limited. Thank you very much for talking to us on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you for having me.